His Majesty married one more time. He had 6 wives, and his last wife was another Catherine called Catherine Parr. Now she was a good, kind woman. Well, hello and welcome back. Part 2, if you like, from Theatre Workshop. I've just done one video about the beginning of the Tudors, and I did say we'd come back and we'll do another one, a second section all about the Tudors. It's such a big piece of history. Now, in the first part, we talked about Henry VII, so this second bit is definitely going to be all about Henry VIII. So as I said, Henry VII passed away, and the next King of England, did you find out? I've just told you really, was Henry VIII. Now the thing about Henry VIII, when he became the king, he was very young. He was about 19. He was very handsome. Everybody thought he was wonderful. He had the best parties ever. He had one every night, and at these parties you could eat as much as you liked. You could drink whatever you liked, and you saw the best entertainment. You would see, you'd see dancing bears, snake charmers, fire eaters. Can you imagine how wonderful that would be? But these parties weren't cheap. And if you think about it, if he had them every night, I wonder how much that was going to cost him. Now, Henry VII saved an absolute fortune. They think he saved in taxes and all sorts of schemings about £17 million. When Henry VIII became the king, he spent the lot in about 3 years. He spent it on parties, on costumes, on horses, on jousting, you name it, he spent it. And also, he's still married to Catherine of Aragon, and they have had a pleasant daughter called Mary. But there was one thing he really wished for. Have you got any ideas? You're right, it wasn't a daughter. He wanted a son and heir to carry on behind him. But after a while, Catherine of Aragon, she just couldn't have any more children. And Henry VIII was desperate for this son. And he thought, right, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get myself a divorce. And the one person who can give me a divorce is the Pope. Pope Clement VII in Rome. He can give me a divorce. So he wrote a long letter. He sent it to the Pope. The Pope read it and refused to give him a divorce. And when Henry VIII found out, do you think he was a little bit cross? Yes, he was furious. He was shouted. He threw things. He was just unbearable to be around. He wanted that divorce. And so his ministers got together and they said, Your Majesty, we know how to get a divorce. It's quite simple. You make up your own faith, Your Majesty. You put yourself in charge and you give yourself a divorce. The king thought, what a wonderful idea. I'm so glad I thought of that. That's what I do. I will take myself away from the Catholic Church in Rome and I will start my own faith, and I will call it the New Faith. What a great idea, all the ministers thought. So that's what happened. Henry VIII got himself a divorce from Catherine of Aragon, and it didn't take him long to find himself a new wife. His second wife was called Anne Boleyn. Now, unfortunately, they too weren't married for very long, and Anne Boleyn gave Henry another daughter. This time this daughter was called, that's right, well done, Elizabeth. And after a while, Anne Boleyn, oh dear, she fell out of favour with His Majesty. People spread gossip about her, and unfortunately, Anne Boleyn lost her pretty head off her shoulders. Lucky for her, I suppose, she had a very thin neck. And so when the sword fell upon her neck, when she was executed, it came off in one clean swipe. Now then, you think Henry might have learnt his lesson by now, but oh no, he wanted another wife. He desperately wanted that son, and he came across a beautiful young lady called Jane Seymour. Now, Jane Seymour gave him the son he so desperately wanted. He was called Edward. But unfortunately, Jane became very poorly and she passed away. She died, well, I think they'd been married a couple of years, and she died, and His Majesty was so upset he decided he would never, ever, 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 ever marry again. Was that the truth? No, it wasn't. Because the people at court said, well, Your Majesty, we don't have a great deal of money as you keep spending it, so you are going to have to marry somebody. You're going to have to marry somebody who has got lots of money. Begrudgingly, the king said, right, I will marry somebody, but I want to see some portraits. We would call them photographs today. Portraits of these princesses before I marry one. Now, there was a painter called Holbein that worked for the king, and he was sent off right across Europe to paint these princesses and bring them back, and His Majesty would pick one of those. Now Holbein, well, he was a very, very good painter, and he painted one of the ladies, well, quite glamorous, and he saw this painting of, this lady from Cleves called Anne of Cleves. He saw the painting and thought, ooh, she looks very nice. Yes, I will marry her, bring her here, and I will visit her and have a chat. So Anne of Cleves was brought to England, where she stopped in sort of a pub, if you like, down the road, where the king could visit. And the king thought, oh yes, I'll be quite sneaky. I'll disguise myself so she won't know it's me. So the king, in disguise, went to where Anne of Cleves was staying. He went up the stairs. He found a little spy hole, and he peeped through the spy hole. But he couldn't believe it. When he saw Anne of Cleves, she was nothing like her portrait. In fact, he said she looked like a horse, a Flanders mare, is what he said. And he didn't wish to marry her, but because he had no money, and he said he would, he had to. Now then, they weren't married for very long, and Anne of Cleves, she kept her head, and she was allowed to stay in England in one of the palaces where she did her favourite thing, which was eat chocolate. She loved chocolate. She liked to drink chocolate. Oh, and she seemed quite happy. But after this, His Majesty thought, yes, I think I'll have another wife. Yes, I'll have wife number 5. And he looked around his court and he saw a beautiful lady called Catherine, and Catherine Howard. And he thought, yes, I think I'll marry her. Now then, by now, His Majesty was getting quite old. He was getting quite large and quite unattractive. And Catherine Howard was very young. She was very pretty. But they got married. But Catherine Howard made a big mistake. She already had a boyfriend. When she married the king, she kept her boyfriend. And when His Majesty found out, do you think he was a little bit cross? He was so cross, he executed Catherine Howard's boyfriend, and then unfortunately, Catherine Howard, she too, lost her head. Now, His Majesty married one more time. He had 6 wives, and his last wife was another Catherine called Catherine Parr. Now, she was a good, kind woman. She looked after Henry VIII because by now he was quite large and unwell. He had sores on his legs. He had ulcers in his stomach, but he still wanted to do his favourite thing in the whole world, which was ride his horse. But he had a little bit of a problem. Because he was so large, he couldn't quite get onto his horse. So the palace had to build him something. They built him some stairs, which he sort of wobbled to the top. And when he was at the top, they got a winch, which is like lots of ropes and pulleys. They put the winch around His Majesty's waist and they heaved him onto the horse. And then off he'd go, hunting or jousting, come back, they put him back in the pulley and they would heave him off the horse. Whew. Now, after quite a long illness, finally Henry VIII passed away. And that is where I'm going to finish that part of the Tudors. It's packed full of facts and a little bit of a story. And I want you to do for me, let me think, oh, here's a good thing. Can you do for me? You could write a diary that you could pretend to be one of the wives. You could write about Henry VIII, what it might be like living in the palace. You could be Anne of Cleves, how you live in the palace and you eat chocolate all day. That would be fun. Or you can do me a drawing of Henry VIII trying to be winched onto his horse. Whatever you do, have great fun in doing it, and we'll see you next time. As always, take care and best of luck. Catch you later from here at Theatre Workshop.
Thank you for watching. I hope you found it enjoyable and useful. In the comment box below, please put a question or a comment about the video. To grow our community more and help other teachers out there, please subscribe to the channel and share our posts and videos. Thank you.